So welcome everybody. We're just waiting for people to come in. So just waiting for a few more people to join us as they come through on the links. Got 50 people and counting. So just wait a couple more seconds. So it's just getting a few more last minute registrations and then we'll get started. Right, so I think we're about there. So welcome everyone to Building the Future of Buddhism, a conversation on Thubten Chökor Ling Temple, and that's based at Gomde UK. So there'll be many of you on this call that will know Gomde very well. And for those that don't, Gomde is a Buddhist centre situated on the outskirts of Doncaster, and it's based in its own amazing plot of land. If you've never visited, I think it's about 180 acres of land. So it's really worth visiting, and they do Buddhism classes and they teach meditation and a few other secular courses as well. So what's today about? Well, firstly, you know, with the lockdown, there's not been as much opportunity for people to visit Gomde, if at all. So today is about giving a bit of an update to the community about what's been going on there, but mainly it's about sharing news of the temple project. So there's been a few more developments and those are going to be shared, but also because people have gotten this kind of online world, if you like, it means that we can share the news further and wider than we've ever been able to do before. And that's what part of this event's about, is to try and reach as many people as possible about this temple project, which is acting local but thinking global. So just a bit about the people that are involved. So you can see here we've got some of the trustees, and they're about the people that are involved about putting today together and Gomde in general. So you've got the trustees, which are familiar faces to many people. I'm not going to go into everyone's bios because they're on the website and they'll also be in the event information. And you've also got the development committee, and that's where I'm part of. So if you've not met me before, my name's Jason, and I'm helping to manage the development of the temple project, which includes project management along with David, Helen and Claire, and includes fundraising as well. So this is the agenda for today. Firstly, we're just going to have some updates from Paulette, trustee, about Gomde and what's been going on. And then we're going to have a really nice short video message from Chökyi Nyima. Then we're going to have Lama Öser join us and do a bit of a talk about Gomde and the temple. And Lama Öser, for those that don't know, is the resident teacher. And Chökyi Nyima is the kind of head teacher of the centre and also of the International Buddhist Organisation. And then we're going to go to David Benjamin, who's also a trustee, and he's going to be talking about the designs of the temple and where we're up to and so forth. And lastly, we'll end with Geshe in Losel. It's Geshe Graham Woodhouse, who may be more familiar to others by that name. And he's a local practitioner who's going to also talk about the temple and the meaning of it in the West. And then there'll be a Q&A at the end, so people can ask as many questions as they like about the temple and the project, or to any of the speakers specifically. Just a few things to say, a bit of housekeeping if you like. This is being recorded, and the recording will be made available afterwards. We will be streaming this live to Facebook too. And any questions that you want to ask, just make sure you do that in the Q&A box at the bottom, and not the chat box, but the Q&A box at the bottom. What you can also do is upvote questions by pressing the thumb mark. The more votes a question gets, the more likely we are to ask the question. So I'm just going to ask Paulette to turn her screen on now, as well as her microphone, and ask Helen to start sharing her screen. And what Paulette is going to talk us through is about a general update of where we're up to at Gomde for those people that have not been had the pleasure of visiting in quite some time. So straight over to you then, Paulette.
Hello, everyone. It's so wonderful that many of you can join us today, and I'm reporting live from Gomde UK. David and I have situated ourselves in the meditation hall. We thought you would like to be in the presence of Gomde's wonderful statues of Buddha Shakyamuni and Padmasambhava, and we can all imagine that you are here. So we start with lockdown and beyond. Initially, lockdown was difficult. In March, we were geared up for one of our busiest year of events with a number of new staff and volunteers in place. And then suddenly, everything changed. Within a week, many events were cancelled, staff left, and volunteers were not able to come. Gomde went from bustling to almost empty in a few short days. And then there was four. Since the start of lockdown, we have had a small resident group at Gomde. David, Paulette, Will, and Khenpo Tokpa Tulku. You will be glad to know we've held the fort with diligence, fortitude, and of course, humour. Khenpo Tokpa Tulku has been stranded here since March. I cannot quite describe how fortunate the residential team feels to have shared the COVID-19 and fire retreat with Khenpo. Khenpo has been an inspirational guide and has given us teachings directly via Zoom and through YouTube, making the teachings freely available to a wider audience. In lockdown, we hope you've been able to support many of you with profound yet practical Dharma teachings. Now that the COVID lockdown is easing a little, we have set up procedures and precautions to keep people safe, and we are now inviting our volunteers back to Gomde. We are glad to say that we had a positive response, and it has contributed enormously to us getting on top of things. It's also very precious for some of the community to be able to gather again together. Through the knock-on effect of lockdown, there have been a lot of difficult changes. Although these changes have not been easy, the trustee group, David, Marisha, Paulette and Michelle, have diligently and regularly worked together to navigate a way forward to help Gomde flourish in turbulent times. We now see the upheavals as an opportunity to think about our future development in a new, different and perhaps better way. We are fortunate that the growing Gomde team of skilled people are supporting us to do this, and a sense of optimism pervades the place and people. Fire and recovery. Most of you are aware that the fire that started here on the 17th of May lasted 23 days. Thanks to Doncaster Council, there was an early national response to the fire, which ensured that the moor and the Lindholme Island were made safe. Whilst around 50% of the Hatfield Moor was burnt, which is about 1,500 acres, the Lindholme Island had some 25 acres of fire damage, mainly in the woodland on the fringes of the island. We recently worked on damage made through the creation of a large fire break. Felled trees have been harvested, glades created, and sunset views over the moor opened up. We are now working in partnership with our volunteer specialist conservation group, the Lindholme Moor Management Group, to plan for the recovery from the fire. We are also involved with Natural England and Doncaster Council to contribute to a wider planning regarding future fire prevention. Conservation and gardens. Our acres of grassland have been exceptionally beautiful this year, with swathes of wildflowers that are particular to this type of soil and rarely seen. We are delighted to say that we've managed to keep on top of all the HLS conservation management of the land, and with 180 acres, this was not a small thing. We are particularly grateful to Will, David Curry and Susan for their tireless help in the last few weeks. We have extended the vegetable garden this year. We built a greenhouse using the framework from our old three-season dining area. We are growing our largest range of organic vegetables to date, and we are filling up the freezer with fruit to make jam. We estimate to produce about 400 jars this year. We're really happy that Sharon is back cooking a day a week, and Paul, Jan and Wilson from the garden team have returned to help. Studio workshop. The new studio workshop has grown significantly, and with 650 square meters of floor space, It is an impressive building. In January 2020, we were granted planning permission for 8 ensuite rooms, 4 single and 4 twin above the studio workshop. As funds are donated, the work continues, and as you will see, the building team are being kept quite busy. Events. With great reluctance, the trustee group have made the decision that all our events are now cancelled for the year. It simply does not feel possible to navigate a way forward and keep everyone safe. The weekly meditation study group began its new online life via Zoom this week. We now have our retreat hut available to host those who wish to undertake serious solitary retreat. And we were pleased that the hut is now being used regularly. Looking forward. Lama Öser always says that many problems are for the best, and so we plan with purpose that the change will be right for Gomde. We plan to continue into 2021 as an essentially volunteer-based organisation. In the coming weeks, to increase our volunteer base, we hope to recruit new resident volunteers, volunteering from home volunteers, and local volunteers. Thanks and appreciation. We want to extend our heartfelt thanks to all of those who have supported us through these turbulent times, some with good wishes, some with much needed financial support, others with hours of work at a distance, and still others coming to Gomde to help us keep on top of things. May we together make Gomde Lindholme Hall a steadfast home for the authentic Dharma, to be taught, studied, practiced, and abide for countless generations. Through this endeavour, may this and future generations have the opportunity to connect with the liberating instructions of the Buddha and realise kindness, insight, compassion, and ultimately liberation. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Paulette. We're now going to hear a short video from Chökyi Nyima.
That means welcome. I'm in Nepal. I'm sending my love and pray to all of you who are watching this. And we all know we are in these days, the COVID, the 19th harming all of us, difficult time. So please be strong, and it will over. It will over. Everything is impermanent, so it will change. So be strong. Okay. In England, and near Yorkshire, we found a meditation Dharma center, a very beautiful land, and world is changing. Now we all, 21st century is science and technology time, and there's two science. Outer science is based on matter. Inner science is based in mental development. So Buddhist teaching is science of mind, common sense, and common logic, and common need. So I mentioned we have beautiful land, quite big, 180 acres in England. So, and we are very lucky. Also, the neighbors and the governments, all very kind to us. So we got the permit to build a monastery or temple. Why temple is important? Temple is important, then we can keep all the Dharma texts. The Dharma text, we have thousands of texts. We need to have a very safe place. So in the temple, we keep the Dharma text. And also statues, tankas, and the most important is studying the Buddhist philosophy and meditation. So that's very important to have permanent ordained monks or nuns and teach Buddhist philosophy and teach meditation, whoever enters. So many reasons that building temple is very important. So whoever want to know more about why important temple, please look, think, and help. And next time I will explain more detail. Thank you very much. All the best.
So I'm just going to ask Lama Öser to turn his video on microphone. So if Lama Öser is available to do that. Hello. So Lama Öser is going to give us a bit of a talk about the temple. So over to you, Lama.
Can you see?
Yeah, we can see very well, thanks.
Oh, thank you so much. Hello, everyone, and namaste and tashidele. Very happy to hear, and also happy to seeing all the our student and friends keeping very good health. And at this moment, also one side, of course, COVID-19. We've been quite a difficult period, but now everything's slowly getting better, and it will anyway changes also, as Rinpoche said it, impermanent. That's true. And so now, what we have visions about the temple in England, and this is a very great news for everyone, I believe, because those the teachers or masters, the visions is because only the benefit towards others, and there's many different ways they can benefit. So that's why, because temples are very important, because why the student, we need to get together, although we are different parts of the world, but there are also the student come together to receive teachings, to also reflecting the teachings, and also learning. So this all purpose, the temple itself is because the place for study and the teachings, whatever we received. So that's why, because now we are very fortunate, because in the UK, we've found there's such beautiful land and a huge. So now, because also not only land, we are now developing the temple as well. So in this moment, because as Rinpoche said it as well, because from the Buddha's teachings, definitely in this 21st century, we can contribute also some days also for the entire in our the world, because there's a modern science and also spiritual combined, and there are so many evidence which they really approved it also through the teachings. It's a really benefit for the student or for the entire humanity. And that's what we need also, because especially in a science of mind, as there's so much richness. So we need also how to preserve, and also we need place to study. So traditionally, the temples are this perfect place for study, because environment itself, they developed for teachings. And so now Rinpoche has the visions, and also the student side, also all we are begin to, moving, and all the visions are come true. So that's why now everybody wants to come together today here in order to support. So this is because not only religious side, also culturally, and also the environment where we live, we can contribute many different ways in Doncaster, such as, because we can see, since I was there many years, and how many students, I think, 1,000 students I've connected, like different schools, and they are very elementary schools, middle schools, and also high schools have been visited. And there are so many the people and students are interested about the teachings, and because they are really searching something inside. And these are because now also locals, there's an increasing every time. So that's why, because we see there's the teaching itself can contribute, and then same time we are providing the place where there's more intensive study, and also can learn and reflecting all the teachings. That's why, because Rinpoche, we here in the monastery, we have many the scholars, the Khenpos and the Lobens, and also many Lama practitioners. So they're always ready to serve. So that's why also now we are temples there's moving. So I believe whoever there's interest, please support whatever you can, physically or financially a little bit, even just rejoicing what we are doing. And that all makes differences for our Gomde, UK. And so I'm so happy to come together here today, and thanks for everybody here to joining, and please support wherever there's some spiritual, we can move together to benefit entire beings. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lama.
Thank you.
Really inspiring. So I'm just going to ask David to turn his camera on now. So David has been preparing a talk about the temple design, and Helen, if you start sharing the screen. So David's been planning to talk about the temple design, and he's going to talk us through where we're up to in terms of the actual building work, and there's been some exciting developments. So we are happy for David to be with us today. So over to you, David.
Thank you. And thank everybody for attending. I'm to talk about the temple. Well, I guess I'll have to start where it began. In 2009, Paulette, myself, and Marisha were in Gomde, Denmark, meeting with Chökyi Nyima, at which point he tasked us with the saying there will be should be a temple, not a temple, but it should be a Dharma center, or a place for people to gather in the UK. And then we came back and started looking, and he had said, send us pictures. And then we, the three of us came to this one and looked at it, so this looks very good. So then we sent the pictures to Rinpoche. Next slide. And what came back from him was said, this place is a jewel. By the way, you're looking at the 180 acres of the Lindholme Island. He said, you cannot find something superior to this. So after 12 days of searching, we had got an agreed sale to purchase the land, and that was the beginning.
I think the extension here works.
Then in October 2010, we changed our use of the land to become a Buddhist center. And in 2012, we're recognized as a place of worship. Next slide. In 2014, while walking with Chökyi Nyima, he said, there will be a temple here. It will be 60 to 70 feet square. It'll be 3 stories high, made out of stone and timber. So that got us busy. Then we had to start applying for planning permission, which we did. We worked with that, and in July 2016, we were granted full planning permission for the quadrangle, which was the improvement of the buildings on the land, and also outline planning permission for the temple. Next slide. Then in October 2017, we were granted full planning permission for the temple. One of the conditions that came with it was that we would need to have it commenced within 2 years, the commencement. So that was one of the conditions on that. Next slide. So, and then in June 2019, Chökyi Nyima Rinpoche named the temple Thubten Chökor Ling, the island where the wheel of Buddha's teachings turned. And initially, when we were looking at it as a temple, but it seems to be talked about a lot as a monastery. And so it's, and I think Chökyi Nyima is thinking of it as a monastery, temple for the books, but monastery for the monks, right? Next slide. So in September 2019, we had the archaeologists in. When we purchased the property, we knew there was an old trackway that went off of the north side of the island. That was from 4,500 years ago, about the time of Stonehenge. So when the archaeologists come in and they're digging where the temple will be and where the roadway will be, 43 different test pits, and they came across this, and that was like, oh no, it might be a kind of trackway made out of oak and logs. And so it was nervous for a couple of days, but eventually they looked at them, they dug around them, they looked at them and decided they were just fallen trees. So that cleared the way for the last hurdle for the sign off from the archaeologists on the site. So next slide. So then in October 2019, we were able to begin the roadway to the temple. And it was an exciting time because you actually, rather than just doing years and years of assessment, you're actually getting to do something. Next slide. And then also in October 2019, we did the excavation for the temple, and building permits were then issued, and that was what triggered the 2-year commencement condition was satisfied. So at this point, we have permission to continue building that temple, even if it takes us 10 years to build it. It doesn't make any difference, or 20 years. There's no time limit in the planning permission holds. Next slide. In March 2020, we finalized the construction and the structural plans. And also we're here, this is May 2020 on this picture. We're leveling the sub-base, which goes below the foundation. Next slide. Then in June 2020, we were laying out the shuttering for the formwork for the foundation wall. As you can see, it's about a foot high. It's going to be a large slab. It'll be easier to see in some other pictures. Next slide. Yeah, in July 2020, they're digging the deepened foundation for the 2 of the 4 columns that support in the building. Next slide. And then in July 2020, the reinforcement seal arrived. And then next slide. And also July 2020, we're putting down the damp-proof membrane, and also the reinforcement steel is placed in where it will go in the concrete. Altogether, this will be poured in 2 parts. The front part, first part to be poured, will have the Buddha statue on it and half of the building, and then the second half will be poured, will be where the main entrance is coming in. When we do the first half of the pour, it will be about 100 cubic meters of concrete. That will be 13 concrete trucks coming that day, and then putting them into a large pumping truck that then will pump them. That will be done by others to do that. Next slide. And this is one of the plans for the foundation plan. It's a large raft foundation, so it's a reinforced, all of one big concrete reinforced slab, so it all acts like a kind of a big raft to spread out the weight. The light bluish green squares in the middle are the bases for the central columns that come down. And the pink is different layers of how the steel mesh has to go into the concrete, and the white is also other kinds of steel mesh layers in the concrete. And then prior to pouring the concrete, we'll have building control come and do an inspection, and also the structural engineer will come and sign off. Next slide. This gets into the costings. And so far, we've spent 61,000 pounds on different parts of the building control, the road, the excavations, and the structural plans. There'll be another 45,000 that needs to be spent on getting the foundations in place. And for that, 10,000 has come from a discretionary grant made by Doncaster Council, and 35,000 comes from a loan from a private individual. We're a little nervous on using the loan, and asked Chökyi Nyima Rinpoche, and he said, yes, go ahead, it's a good idea. So we weren't sure of the economic climate. So then you can see as we're going up after the foundation, the next floor up to the ground floor is about 200,000, and the ground floor to the upper floor is about 500,000, and then the upper to roof is another 600,000. Altogether, if you go down to the bottom, you can see it's about 2.9 million for the cost of this. We've been building it on the if and when sort of theory. So as the money comes in, we collect enough to get so that we can build to a level where it is stable and won't decay. And then we'll build to that level, and then we build to the next level. So it's, if all the money came in at once, of course we could build it out and do it in a different way. But as it is right now, it's coming in a little slower. So that's how it is. And so that's our costing on that. Okay, next slide. So now, as you approach this is a virtual walkthrough of the new temple. As you approach on the south side, there are 9 steps that you'll have to walk up. The floor will be glass block, so that it allows light to go down into the basement, because this has a full basement underneath it. So that would be the light for coming into the basement. The exterior is made out of a polished KB limestone, which would be solid limestone, and the windows and doors will all be oak, made out of oak. And as you'll be entering in here from the south side, next slide. And you'll enter into a large hall. It's about 500 square meters. 5.2 is the height for the ceiling height. And the central area is open. And it's open all the way up through the roof to a glass roof pavilion at the top, which will allow natural light and ventilation. Approximately 400 people can occupy the hall at once. In front will be statues, and then off to the right, off to the left, well, there's doors to the east and the west, 2 sets of double doors, which also can be used as fire exits. And off to the left, there's a door you go through, which gets you to the elevator. Next slide. And from here, we can take the elevator down to the basement level, which has toilets, heating and ventilation, torma rooms, sock preparation areas, and storage. Next slide. And now we can take the elevator to the upper level, which has a central portion of this upper level is open below and open above. So it's all glass walled and allows natural exchange of light and ventilation. And there's a corridor around the central level from which you can access the library, toilets, and kitchen. And then next slide. And from there, you can go up to the 420 square meter roof terrace, which has a central 7 meter by 7 meter glass walled pavilion. Then that's how the light, it makes the light well for the building, as well as allowing ventilation into the building. Okay, so next slide. So here you can see an example of the roof pavilion a little bit better. So for all this to get to where it is right now, there's a lot of causes and conditions that had to come together. It's pretty amazing when you really look at how many things had to happen. I mean, first of all, Chökyi Nyima Rinpoche had to have the vision to say, find a place for people to gather in the UK. That's the beginning, right? And then that had to happen. So then we had to find the place with all the other processes that were necessary, with becoming a charity and all the other things along with that. Then also, Chökyi Nyima Rinpoche had to have the vision of there will be a temple here. So until he came with that, there was no direction. Then suddenly that has to happen. In order for that to happen, it took years to secure planning permission, And for the planning permission to have happened, there had to be the community support, there had to be planner support. There was Peter the architect who worked tirelessly and for free to create this, and working with the planners, with his advice from Lama Togbe, who would advise him on how to make an authentic temple, authentic Tibetan Buddhist temple. So there's also support from the local council and the support from our Sangha, and it just goes on and on. It really is a time to celebrate. There's so many things that have come together to get us to the point where now we have the permissions and we can start building. It's really, it's definitely time to celebrate. I think everyone should be very happy with that. Next slide. So I'm thank you all for listening. This has been I hope you're pleased with the progress. I mean, it's not possible to really thank everybody that's helped in all the different ways that they have. There's so many of you that have made donations, large and small. You've made time, you've made effort, sweat, you've helped from away, you've had good wishes. It just, all of it comes together to make something happen. And it's really precious. I think we should all feel very like it's a big celebration that we've got to here. So that's all I have. Thank you.
David, that was brilliant. Thank you very much. So some great questions coming in, so don't forget to pop on there and keep up voting them. Just going to ask our final speaker, Geshe Graham Woodhouse. Geshe Tenzin Losel to turn his screen on now and microphone. Geshe Graham was born in Sheffield and has trained in the Tibetan tradition, so he's going to give his view on the temple in the West. So over to you when you're ready.
So you've got my, you can see me, can you?
Yeah, we can see you now.
You can hear me?
Yeah, thanks.
That's fine. Okay, well, thank you for inviting me. I've not been to Gomde very much myself, but I really appreciate the work that's been going on. So I very much welcome the news that Gomde UK, Gomde Lindholme, is getting so well on with this magnificent project to build, well, the first Tibetan Buddhist temple in England. And it's even in my own native county of Yorkshire. So, being the first, temple in the Tibetan style in England makes it a very, exciting project in itself, and historically significant even, and a magnificent artistic project. So I've never been to Tibet, but Tibetans in Tibet, before the crushing, impact of the Chinese invasion, the arrival of modern times, using only local materials and, very simple technology, built the most beautiful temples and monasteries that really graced those lonely landscapes that they were set in. And to me, they were just inspiring just to look at. Since the design of this temple and the oversight of this temple is under the guidance of Chökyi Nyima Rinpoche, his organization, I'm sure that that's a magnificent lineage, and therefore we're going to see an authentic evolution of that striking architectural tradition. And that's, it'll be meticulously carried out, I'm sure, with the best of materials. So I'm happy to say that I look forward to seeing it as a sort of a gem, a gem of color and craftsmanship, a gem of local interest in this, in that less well-known but very beautiful part of Yorkshire County. So I congratulate the planning authorities for approving such a project. And I hope, by its very appearance, just like I was inspired by those old photos of Tibet when I was sort of getting interested in, Eastern philosophy. So maybe just seeing this monastery, when it's built, will be something of a spiritual, arouse a spiritual curiosity and an uplift to the spirit when it's finally finished, just by seeing the place. Yes, just like those pictures did to me a long time ago, the pictures of old Tibet. Yes, and it is a long time ago since I began my sort of Buddhist quest. I've been a monk almost for 30 years now. So that's a monk in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, that is. And well, I've done my best. It may not be very adequate, but I've done my best to fulfill the wishes of my ordination master, who was His Holiness Dalai Lama, you know, to practice and follow that life of full-time study, critical reflection, and meditation that he praises and talks about. My debt to those Tibetan teachers is absolutely enormous. Any progress that I've made in my study or practice, you know, it's all down to them. But it didn't just depend upon their teaching and their guidance. It didn't just depend upon, you know, their loving spirit, but it also depended upon those physical facilities which they provided with great foresight, great dedication, and I'm sure with a great deal of sweat and, you know, headaches, because they were doing it all in exile, right? So they were starting really from scratch. But by doing that, you know, they made it possible for me to take the teachings in. Of course, you know, Buddha's message of you know, the spiritual insight and peace and kindness, that's the most important thing. And Buddhism, the institution, you know, you know, the worldly thing where, you know, it's all stuck down in on the basis of bricks and mortar and bank accounts, that's always kind of less important. But how can you bring that message of uplift and that message of, you know, of spiritual inspiration to a widening circle of students? I mean, not just one or two close disciples, but, you know, so so you can have a widening circle of students and then create a ripple effect in society and maybe even a wave effect. So from the teachings of the Buddhas properly understood, then this wave of peace and you know, positive action can sort of ripple out through society, which is exactly what we need, you know, in this world, this disintegrating impermanent world, as ever. So, you know, how are we going to do that? We need the physical facilities. We need the enlightening message, of course. We need the great teachers, but we need the infrastructure. So whether we're weekend students or long-term students, whether we're ordained or whether we are lay people, you know, to find our peace of mind and to do our study and practice, then we need a conducive place. So we need a study space, we need a contemplative space, you know, library space, accommodation space, space for communal prayer and devotion, space for this mental development towards compassion and wisdom to occur. So I'm happy to say, you know, to see that this temple now being built will provide those things, or at least be at the center of all those, you know, physical requirements. And I know Gomde, I know Lindholme, so it will be far away from the mudding crowd and the commercialism of the city and the marketplace, which is exactly what is wanted, especially if, you know, you're going to support. So I was lucky. I always found those physical facilities when I needed them, whether I was studying in the UK or later on for many years in northern and southern India. So I didn't just get that typical very, very friendly Tibetan welcome, which is always great. That always warmed my heart. I didn't just get the profound and learned teachings, but I got those, you know, those practical necessities of somewhere to stay at a cheap price, you know, and you know, the sort of the facilities where all the monks can get together and pray together and whatever it was, all those things I've mentioned. So I mean, I remain very grateful to my amazing teachers for providing those things just on the practical level as well as anything else. So, you know, the temple is you know, I'm very delighted to see that what's happening in Gomde, Lindholme, and I'm sure with the way that it's been explained today, how it'll be of the very highest quality of workmanship and something that will look beautiful for a very long time. So I may just mention to finish that I'm staying in Nalanda Monastery, which is in the south of France. So this is a community of about 30 monks, also many lay people study here also. So we have two Tibetan senior teachers. So I know what it's like to live in the West in a sort of Dharma community, perhaps something like what Chökyi Nyima Rinpoche envisages. 30 of us monks living together, some nuns. There's a nunnery that has been set up recently a few kilometers away, so they also have their chance. And as I say, lay people come and attend the teachings we have here. So I know how Gomde could turn out to be, when all these beautiful building plans have come to fruition. And as I say, I'm in the south of France. I don't know if you can see the sweat on my brow, but it is 40 degrees centigrade today. So I don't think it was ever hotter than that in Dharamsala in India, in northern India, maybe in southern India, but it's hot enough. So if I had the option of moving a bit further north to a monastic community in cool green Yorkshire, that might be very tempting in the future. So very good. Good luck with all your plans. Congratulations to the many people who have, brought the project on so far, what you have achieved so far. Thank you for including me. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thanks very much. It was really inspiring. So we're at the end now, and we've got about 15 minutes left. So I'm just going to ask every panelist to turn on their cameras at the moment, and I'm just going to ask some questions from the panel that's been coming through. So if everyone can just turn on, maybe stay on mute until we get direct to the question. Claire, if you could add Marisha as a panelist if that's possible, just in case there is opportunity to ask questions to all the trustees as well. So there's quite a number of questions. So the first one is, I think, quite practical, which I imagine is going to be directed to David, who knows some of the technical knowledge, and the trustees, and it's about disabled access. So if I get this question straight up there, will there be disabled access? And as well, let's start with that. Well, is there going to be disabled access to this temple? So I will, if you can't unmute yourself, I'll unmute you now. So you should be able to unmute yourself. If not, maybe another trustee. Oh, there we go. Do you want to speak?
Yes, there is disabled access. I didn't point it out on the plans, but you can see it. It goes around the side of the building, and it's ramped up to where the elevator is. And then from the elevator, you can take down to the toilets and up to the library. So there is disabled access as well as from floor to floor.
Brilliant. And another what felt like quite a relevant question is nunnery. We mentioned the opportunity for monks to live on site. Is there going to be a nunnery as well?
I'm working on the temple. But I imagine there will be monks and nuns that will be here, and then that's a whole nother level of how to do the coordination and how to do the different kinds of structures that are going to be necessary. I think it likely, but I'm not. It's not in my plan at the moment.
Okay. Anything you want to add to that, Paulette? Or
no, I'm just going to say it's really Rinpoche's plan rather than our plan.
Okay.
But knowing how inspiring our female practitioners are, I'm sure a nunnery will be in Rinpoche's mind.
Great, brilliant. And there's a question here about the traditional build. Is the design of the temple going to be traditional?
The temple design was definitely Tibetan traditional. It was done by this architect, Peter Odshan, with the assistance of this person, Lama Togme, who is Tibetan, who's the expert on temples. And he showed how to do it and said, no, change this. This needs to be 9 steps. This needs to have a little ledge. This needs to have this, and the reason why it needs to have all that. And that's a whole nother presentation on all the reasons and the symbolism of each of the different things, because the temple is actually representative of the mind and how your mind, when you have a tamed mind, it's in a certain shape, and how things line up and how the building has to be like that. So yes, from my point of view, I think I would say it's traditional Tibetan style, but it will be using English oak,
Right.
as well as natural South Yorkshire limestone. So it won't be using imported materials. We get our materials locally.
Could I just add a little story to that? So Rinpoche was asked by a group of monks that wanted to rebuild their monastery, their temple. They had but they wanted to design. They wanted blessings from Rinpoche, and they lived in Tibet. And Rinpoche said to them, "Please go and see Lama Togme in his monastery. He will give you advice." And Lama Togme told them to check the Lindholme Temple, and they should copy this. It's perfect.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah. So we've got a couple more technical questions. There's a question here that's got the most votes, and I said I promised I'd ask the question with the most votes. So we might as well go there then. So how can we best help Gomde right now? And maybe Lama Öser, if he could maybe comment on this. And we've got a bit of an announcement just at the end, which kind of connects with this. But if Lama Öser is not available, well, maybe some other trustees could.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah. Hello.
Yeah. Okay. Can you see me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So, of course, there's many different ways that we could support, like those who can support or contribute from the financial, or they can support also physically as contributing, therefore supporting, which we have there also some volunteers as like for the gardeners, and then also there's also even rejoicing and all together, because we need all different way, because we have different the skills and also the abilities. So some has time, some has limited time but financial, but we all count as same equally value, and we need actually support together so we can complete our visions. And there can be the nunneries. Is all also depends on also the financial also matters as well. But there might be the monks, nuns, and also there's Rinpoche has also vision that called the old care center, like someone like even some of the practitioners who, when they become old, they could come and stay there to practice together, and a little bit it's inspirations for them, and also support each other. So this is all actually the visions together there. But in order to complete the visions, we all have to come together, support, and wherever actually, whatever we can contribute, then definitely we can complete all those visions will come true.
Great.
Okay.
Would anyone else like to add a point on that? Maybe Michelle, you've got a point on that?
Sure, I would. Thanks so much for coming, everybody. It's been a fabulous webinar. Thank you for all of the preparation. It's amazing to see people around the world joining for this effort. It really touches my heart. What I was going to say is that I think the ways that people could help is really just their aspirations for this to come to fruition in our lifetime. And, you know, any way that a person feels compelled from the heart to participate, again, whether it's through aspirations or through physical help, through financial support. I mean, without the tremendous support of the Sangha and you know, this loan to get the foundation going, which has just really helped us so very much, we couldn't do it. So I think that's it.
Brilliant, thanks. And we'll make a quick comment of that in 5 minutes time when we end, in other ways you can help. So there's I think we should answer this technical question because it's quite an important issue these days, especially about CO2. So there's a question here that the peatland is a very effective carbon sink. So it's a technical question, it's got a lot of votes. Basically, what are the plans to offset CO2 activity when building the temple? Are there any plans like that? And is it carbon neutral build, or, you know, these kind of considerations?
Yeah, me just turn this a little. There we go. The temple I expect to be carbon neutral when it's up and operating, so that as far as itself, it's not built in peatlands. We're a sand and gravel island in the middle of a peat nature reserve, but the 180 acres are actually sand and gravel. So we don't have to disrupt any peatland in order to build the temple. It's all sand and gravel. But yeah, we're expecting the building to perform as carbon neutral when we get it built, and that'll be through a combination of natural ventilation, solar, electric, heat pump technology. It'll be some combiners of those three things, and also a lot of insulation to make that. So, but if people want to know more about that, we can talk about it later.
So I think last question then, and then we'll get to the last announcement. Basically, and you may have touched on this, but maybe it's good to reiterate the timeline. How long do we think this is going to take to build, and what are the contributing factors to that timeline?
Should that maybe? Okay. I think that it is a function of how resources come in. If it was an ideal world and we say we have plenty of money to build this, the time frame would be something around a year and a half probably. But I think that it will come in, and also we don't have the full infrastructure of all the things that would be also necessary. So I'm thinking it's probably going to be more like a 3-year project. That's what I'm thinking, but it could be less. It could be less. We'll see. And it could also be longer. So then it comes down to if there is no money to buy materials, we can't keep building. That's really where it will come down to. And we're in a kind of an unchanging period of time right now, where with the COVID and the other things, it's a little hard to plan and to do things. But as it is, we're going ahead. We're going to keep building. So there we are.
Brilliant. So we'll leave the questions there then. I mean, we've had a few about can we visit and is there separate accommodation, and I think you would reach out to them directly. I'm sure they are open to visits under certain conditions at some point, and there is separate accommodation, really nice accommodation across the centre if people did want to visit. So I'm just going to close by thanking everyone for taking part and their contributions and talks, and we've had some really great questions and some real interest in the project, and this recording can be spread far and wide to spread the news about the temple. And what we wanted to also share just before we close is that Gomde wants to launch a mantra campaign in order to generate the right intention and positive, if you like, energy to get the temple built. And they want to accumulate 1 million the mantras of Buddhist Shakyamuni. You can see that there. I'm sure many people will be very familiar with this mantra. There will be an email coming out about that, how we can record the mantras. And it's just another way that the community can really get behind the project in every way possible, whether that's donations or whether it's through mantra or whether it's coming on site to volunteer. This allows everyone across the whole Gomde community, Buddhist community, to really take part in quite beautiful and deep way, really. So very last thing then, just thanks to everyone for today, and we'll be in contact about future events. So thanks everyone. Bye-bye.